Hello. I'm gonna wait till some more people come in here. All right. Today we are talking about trauma and Black psychology. So, what is trauma? Trauma is a deep emotional wound or toxic stress that comes from environments. We're going to have this conversation with Miss Aisha Payne, who has an MS in psychology. Hold on, she's coming on right now. Hello, hello, for those who are joining. Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So, we have this topic, trauma and Black psychology.
Yes. Yes.
That's kind of loaded. That's a lot.
It is. It is. It's a lot. And I want to say it's a lot simply because it's something we don't talk about, you know. Um, I heard you starting to define Black psychology, or no, you're defining trauma.
Trauma.
Yeah. Well, part of our Black psychology is we have uh, hundreds of years of trauma, hundreds, right?
I actually pulled up a whole. I wish I had a posted this part though. It's a whole timeline of the trauma that we've gone through, and it's like insane, and it's still happening. Like it hasn't stopped, and it's funny when people say that certain things don't exist because we're not experiencing actual slavery, but there's a new form of slavery. There's a new form of racism, and the game changes like every year. So it's like there's constant things that are going on that we have to deal with, and it's not being addressed even in our own communities. I'm not
Right.
getting feedback. I'm getting feedback. Can you hear me?
Hmm.
Okay. So I find this to be just really, really deep and loaded. And also, I started reading this.
Ah, nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about loaded. Uh-huh. Okay. First, let me say, um, I want to make it clear. I always have to do this because even though I have a lot of experience, I don't want people to think like, oh, she's a psychologist or she's a therapist. I'm not. I have worked in mental health fields for a very long time, in different capacities, but I am not by any means a therapist. I always want to use that as a disclaimer because, folks trying to sue folks for information. But I do have the degrees in psychology. I have used them in my profession, and I've seen enough especially with working with adolescents who have, we call it EDBD, so emotional disabilities or behavioral disabilities. I noticed that the students of color, especially the Black ones, along with whatever diagnosis they have, there also tends to be like the trauma that all of us are generationally passing on to
Mm-hmm.
each other. So let's start with the whole the slavery thing. Let's go there first. So, and this happened to me recently. So I was like, really? You would say something like that? This is why folks need to stay off of Facebook, myself included. There was an article that was posted, and it was an article that was like a few years ago to begin with, but somebody had posted it, and it talked about how, like you were saying, slavery was hundreds of years ago, and folks feel like the conversation of reparations and, you know, all of that stuff is a moot point. Like, why are we bringing it up? You can't repair something that was broken so long ago and since has appeared to be sort of kind of fixed, because people
But it
keep telling
hasn't.
us it hasn't, but people want to say, well, you're not slaves now, so why are you upset? Okay, let's
You
put this
are
in perspective.
slaves. The 13th Amendment
Mentality,
plays a big
I
part in
mean,
that.
it does, and people don't think of it that way because a lot of times we get stuck on words and their traditional definitions. So someone posted on there, um, you know, you guys complain about something, or you guys complain so much about things that aren't even happening. You're just, what did they say? You're just perpetuating a media stereotype, and you're the reason why we can't move forward. And I was like, why would you say something like that? First of all, you don't understand what this is like. And I had to respond to the person. Actually, let me see if I can pull that up, because I normally I'll read stuff and I let it go, but this one I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let it go. I had to comment. I had to explain to this person about trauma, and it's like, you don't understand. Oh, here, let us not forget. Well, this person said, let us not forget early America also had white slaves. It was also a Black man that lobbied our government to make slavery legal. Let's also not forget even Native Indians had slaves also. Let's not forget Blacks sold Blacks into slavery. Now, I'm not a white, wait, now I'm not, this person needs to work on English. White man was right, but I'm not saying that what white men did was right, but I am saying to stop blaming it solely on the white man. He was not the only one. True. So I hit back with, yeah, but white people weren't the only one. They weren't the only ones to enslave others, yet they seem to be the only ones that successfully did it time and time and time again. I mean, you can go through the history of different groups of people that were enslaved, but white folks conquered. Nothing against my white friends and nothing, but they conquered over and over and over and over and over again in different parts of the world and enslaved the people that were there in one way or another. And I tried to explain to this person that were all the enslaved groups that you're talking about disrespected, disregarded, and stripped of basic human rights for 300 years? I don't think it happened for everybody for 300 years. Some were very close. Now you take our great-grandparents, who, depending on how old you are, they may very well have grown up with their parents and grandparents in the fields,
Mm-hmm.
picking cotton,
Mm-hmm.
or if they were light enough, being in the big house because they were closer to white looking. That's a whole nother issue. We'll have to talk about colorism. That might come up in here, but that's a whole separate thing. So our great grandparents and grandparents experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Those stories, those memories, those got passed down because our culture is really big on verbal history. A lot of cultures
Mm-hmm.
are, but I know ours are. We tell stories. That's
Stories
how
all the time. Yep.
stories all the time. Stories about your history, stories about history in itself, like what was happening in the country at that time. We all know. I remember our grandparents, my other set of grandparents, talking about how they remember having to cross the street if a white person was walking in their direction because you couldn't walk on the same side of the street as a white person. They remember going into different doors that were marked coloreds only. So having those memories and sharing those stories creates this feeling of, wow, we weren't wanted, we weren't treated fairly, equally, we weren't even treated like human beings, we were animals, you know.
Let's not forget though that we just got out of that not too long ago. Like
Right,
literally maybe what,
right.
40 years ago?
Yeah. No, no. It would be more than that because we're talking like 1960s civil rights movement, right? So
So 60s, some was, I mean, it kind of trickled over to the early 70s, if you want to be honest with some of
yeah,
the stuff, because Jim Crow was alive and well, and all of the remnants from it was still
yeah.
going.
So we're talking
W-
like 50, 60 some years ago. It's not that long. Though most of us have, grandparents that age right now, you know.
or our
So,
parents. Our parents,
or our parents, oh my God, our parents are,
parents are that age,
yeah,
right?
our parents are that age. Like, it's very real to them. It was very real to our grandparents. So that the history of that becomes the trauma, the burden that we keep carrying because it's the memory of this is how it used to be and this is how we were treated. And then it's the knowledge of, yes, this generation has it a bit better than the one before, but we're still fighting. Why are we still fighting? It's a new millennium. Why are we still fighting?
Yeah.
It's like, it's ridiculous to me, you know? I was driving down the street the other day and there was a police officer. I'd come out of the parking lot for Jewel. The police officer was coming out too. And he came out and was driving ahead of me. And so I automatically thought, okay, well, no matter how fast he's driving, make sure you're driving slower than he is. Keep your hands on the wheel. And I thought to myself, why am I having this conversation with myself? Because this is part of the trauma. This is the stuff that we know to be true, that we may or may not get pulled over. And if we do get pulled over, we may or may not be treated fairly. We may or may not be unlawfully taken to jail. We may or may not survive that because Sandra Bland didn't survive that. So there are situations where, we have to have that mental conversation because the trauma of the reality of it is real.
It is.
And it's deeply rooted. It's deeply felt. So for people to say you shouldn't be upset, it's not happening anymore, that trauma is still there. That PTSD, that memory.
That's what it is, though. It's
Yeah.
like we're having like how they say with COVID, long haulers. But this is like long haulers PTSD. But it's like you're stacking more things on top of the
Yeah.
trauma that already exists. So look, like here's the timeline really quickly. So you had slavery 1619 to 1865. Then you had Jim Crowism 1865 to 1965, right?
Yeah.
So then you had the Great Migration and urbanization of blacks. That was from 1915 to 68, which in 1919, when our great grandmother was born, they had the Red Summer.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those who don't know, it was 13 days of racial violence on the
Yep.
south side of Chicago. 23 blacks, 15 whites dead, 537 people injured, 1,000 black families homeless. Then you have ghetto and welfare from 1968 to 1975.
Okay,
And
stop
one
right
of
there.
the
Wait, stop right there. Let me throw this in. Then you have redlining. Let's talk about redlining for a quick
yes,
second. So for those of you that don't know what that is, redlining was when realtors and banks would look at a map and literally draw a red line around an area, and that's where people of color, more specifically black people, could move.
yep,
That area was usually not well kept. It was the property value was lower because the way the houses were kept. It was, basically what essentially became the projects later on. So no matter how much money a Black family may have made, how successful they could have been, they were only given areas within that red line. And it could be the worst of the worst, but that's what banks would talk them into. And that would be that time frame where,
And
yeah, you can
it still is
there.
happening. Low
It's
key, it's still happening.
you
They don't want to talk about it, but
No, because we made such a big deal about it being an unfair practice. And when I say we, I mean us as a society, because we've got the EEOC and all these other things. But um, back in, what was it, late 2000s, early teens, where you had mortgage companies foreclosing on people's houses. A lot of that happened to people of color.
color, yep. And being in bad mortgage deals. Like the interest rate was high. It almost essentially made them upside down. No matter
Yep.
what they did, they were upside down. So don't even get me started.
Well, I mean, if you were a family of upstanding value, and here you are working hard and trying to earn something for yourself, own something for yourself, and you get pushed into a mortgage that you technically really can't afford for a piece of house that's not even worth what you're being, told it is, and now you're kind of stuck with it. And you're still putting work into making it look like how you want it, so you're just bleeding money at this point.
And that's
You're hard to
actually
find
a lot of what a lot of Black people deal with, because we're still trying to fulfill the American dream of home ownership, of having a good job, being able to provide for our families and have wealth, and we're still trying to achieve a dream that so many others have easily achieved. We're still chasing it.
Yeah, 40 acres and a mule. That's what we're chasing. 40 acres and a mule. We've been chasing that.
And so while we're on the whole welfare system, the other part is division in the home. So slavery already divided us by splitting us up and basically selling us and splitting us up and taking us to other places. And then once slavery was over, now you have families that maybe found each other, maybe, people created new families, all types of situations happen, right? So the Black family structure, especially in the 60s to 70s, was actually stronger. The 50s, it was strong, but like the 60s and 70s, you saw more Black families even being starting to be televised, because then you had shows like the Jeffersons and you had shows like Good Times, even though some of those shows was a little depressing if you watch them now.
Yeah, but they were honest about the Black experience. I mean, that's how it was for a lot of like our grandparents and parents and aunts and uncles. I mean, that's how they lived at the time. So it was realistic, at least.
It was. But then they introduced this system of welfare. And then they say, as a rule, there are no adult men that can be in the home. Actually, my mom and I was having this conversation, and it's like, so now the Black family came together. You realize we were stronger together. And then you realize, okay, well, there's still some single mothers that need this. So we're going to create a rule, because we don't want them all together. They need the money, so they're going to go to welfare and they're going to do this. It's like they actually studied this whole scenario and was like, let's separate them again. So now you have the rule with no adult men in the home. And it makes actually women not need the black man at that point.
There you
So
go.
now the government has become your husband, your daddy, your everything. You are dependent. I feel like the
Yep.
pandemic has done that too. That's a
Well,
it's a whole nother thing.
quite
But
possibly.
it has done the same thing, but it's like a never ending thing. Like it's a never ending cycle. And it's like, okay, now you have children that grow up without their fathers, more
Yep.
trauma. You have women that have men that can't stay in the home. So whoever they're dating, they're in and out.
Mm-hmm.
That creates instability,
Mm-hmm.
more issues, right? So it's like a lot of stuff.
Okay, so
So
what does that mean? Let's paint a full picture, because and it took me a while to really understand this myself, because I can tell you, COVID, the year of COVID was awful. It was awful for everybody, but it gave me a lot of time to do research, and it gave me a lot of time to learn stuff that I had never learned before, probably never had any access to it if I wanted to. So let's paint the full picture. You are right. Black families were stronger in the 40s and 50s, right? Because that's when we finally learned, you know what? If we're going to do this, we're going to do this on our own. We're going to do it as a unit, and we're going to make it through. The family unit itself was tight. It was real tight. Now, throw in welfare. Okay, you need a little assistance. Cool. Government's got you, except if you have a man in the house. Right. So now you can't be married. You can date, but like you say, he's got to come and go. So while the mom is on welfare with the kids, what are the men out there doing? Well, let's see. Ooh, let's start infiltrating drugs into the community. Boom. Oh wait, if I sell drugs, I can make real good money. That'll be quick, and then I can give it to my girl and the kids, and my baby mama and the kids. So at least, so now you've got that situation happening too. And let's talk about the incarceration rates. I was listening to, oh my goodness, this couldn't have happened at a better time. I was listening to, I have Sirius XM in my car, and I listen to Kevin Hart's channel. It's a comedic channel, real cool, right? Earthquake was on there, and he was saying how, do you know that the consequences for getting caught with cocaine is actually lesser than getting caught
than
with
crack
crack?
cocaine. Yep.
Uh-huh.
I came across that information a long time ago because
Right.
I wanted to go into criminal law. So that's how I came across that information, because I wanted to know why did criminals why were they doing what they were doing, and then why were they repeating these things once they got out. But the system is set up for you to repeat it, because once you get out, now you have to pay to be out.
Yep.
Then on top of that, you got to find a job. Who's about to hire an ex-con?
Nobody. And nobody, wait, and the time that you were in jail, you weren't rehabilitated anyway. You had to seek that out yourself. So if you wanted to rehabilitate yourself, you had to find the classes, you had to find God, you had to find whatever. Nobody was going to provide you with that. You had to seek it out on your own. If you don't know that you should be looking for something, how do you find it?
Yep.
Right? So then you get put back out into the community. You don't know how to function. You can't get a job. Therefore, you can't take care of yourself because you can't get a place to live. Mm-hmm. So what do? Reoffend, because it's much easier to go back in the pen and have a roof over your head and 3 square meals a day that you know are consistent than to try and figure out how to make it out here where nobody taught you how to get back there in the first place. So now bringing into that crack cocaine and the cocaine part, cocaine is pure, right? So it's going to cost more. Don't you think that should be a higher consequence than adding baking soda to something?
Very much so, but
it's
because
not.
Negroes figured out how to do that.
Because we always know how to make some shit. So
we always know how to make do, huh?
There you go. Right or wrong. Right or wrong. So now that has a
Oh my
high
goodness.
consequence. It's definitely jail time. Clink, clink, you're behind bars. So even if you got a baby mama and a family that you were out hustling for in the first place, you definitely can't do any hustling now because when
Now,
you get out
yep.
of jail. So
And not to mention three strikes. The three strikes rule.
yeah.
For those of you who just joined, hello, hello, hello. I'm going
Hi.
to say you all need to look at the 13th on Netflix, and it will give you a whole different perspective on everything.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know why people act like this stuff is not in existence when they're actually making Netflix specials about it. It's like it's right in front of your face. Like they're saying it. But okay. Oh,
Yeah.
going back to mass incarceration because that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what did that do for women? What did that do for children? And then what did that do for the black man? That was trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Well,
most
let
but
me jump on that because there's something that I think people either don't recognize or overlook. So if the government is telling you you don't need a man, you learn how to survive without one.
mhm.
What does that do to the psyche of the black male? Okay, I've been an offender. I can't get a job. My woman doesn't need me because the only way she can support the family is without me. So what good am I? So now you've got this messed up for the black male. I'm worthless. And then let's go back to our history. The black male was only good if he was working in the field.
Yep.
That was the only use for him, or moving something heavy, or working like some kind of animal. Other than that, you're of no use. And when you are of no use to me anymore, I'm gonna sell you to another slave owner, or I'm gonna put you out to pasture, and I'm gonna let y'all figure out what that means. So you've got now years of black men not being needed the way they should be, the way a man should be
Should
for
be,
his
yep.
family.
She
So
said,
that's trauma
do they
in and of
become
itself.
mentally unstable? Yes, they
Yes, of
do.
course, of
They
course.
do.
If
And I
you
think that's why
because
we
you don't.
have men the way that they are today, where you have those who don't take responsibility for their actions. They're like, a lot of men have fallen back and they're not in their roles. And some men don't
Yeah.
even know what their roles are. And then you have men that grew up in a woman dominated home, or that was the only figure, right? And so now who's showing them what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it?
If they don't have strong men in the family, then the dudes on the corner down the street, well, that's why it's so easy for them to snatch up your son. Because if there are no other males, any other strong males that have good morals and values, the next set will do. So if they're on the street hustling, that's where your son now is. So now let's bring in the gang situation.
Yep.
Why do we have so many gangs? Because we don't have necessarily strong males with strong moral values in the
Now let
home.
me interject. Gangs happened before us, okay?
They did.
Because
They did.
white people always want to say that we're the one who started that. But if you look at the history of Chicago, there was not black people that
Mafias
were
are a
in
gang.
gangs.
Mafias are a gang. They don't want to say that, but mafias are a gang. They're an
They
organized gang.
are,
That's
and
all
they're
it is.
organized, and they're
Yeah.
glorified, and they have
Yes.
museums, and they have
Mm-hmm.
tours now in Chicago. And it's like, so they did the same thing that the GDs, the BDs, all of them basically doing the same thing.
Yep.
They kill people over territory. They kill people
Yep.
over drugs. Back
Yep.
then, prohibition, they was killing people over that.
Yep.
Um,
There's a
it's the
reason why
same
cars
doggone
had
thing.
it was there's a reason why the cars back then had what was called suicide doors. they opened the opposite way so you could hide behind them while you were shooting as the car was moving. Like that was a real thing. So,
Mhm.
but here's the problem. Well, not the problem. Here's the difference. It takes a high amount of intellect to organize people to do that type of crime. We've always been seen as being of lower or lesser intellect. So even though they mirror each other, mafias and gangs, they mirror each other very, very closely. The gangs are inferior because of their mental capacity. That's how we've always been seen.
That's
I
true.
think we talked about this before. I mentioned it in one of our other talks. The African woman who was very shapely, that they found her in Africa and then took her to what was the Netherlands, and they had her on display because they'd never seen. We've always been, people have been fascinated by us.
Yes.
Um,
Our
our strength,
bodies.
our bodies, but we've always been told we're inferior or been treated as if we're inferior. Like it's impossible for you to be as smart as we are because of look at you. How you look tells us that you can't be that smart. Nobody that smart can have, a big butt and big boobs and, big other things. Like that's not possible. All of your what would have been knowledge went into your body parts, so you have to be dumber.
What is she saying? She said the Mac movies, the Superfly movies, which contain money, cars, and loose women.
The
A lot
black
of young
exploitation
men
movie.
back in the day looked up to those people. That is very true.
Because again, the fascination with flash, the fascination with getting money quickly, getting cars quickly, getting women quickly, being the man. Again, look at the trauma behind that. If you have been told for the majority of your existence that you are lesser than and not needed, that life suddenly makes you the center of everything. So you're needed. Everybody wants you. Everybody wants to be with you or be
Yep,
you.
that's true. Oh, oh. That reminds
Told you I
me
was going to drop some
of
knowledge on you.
That reminds me of my brother and I was talking about the Harlem Renaissance and how black people used to get dressed up in their finest
Yes.
stuff. Because I said, why do we always have to spend money on materialistic stuff that don't mean nothing? You go buy some Louis Vuittons and then you about to get put out of your house. Does that make sense? It makes no logical sense. But
And
when
now
you
it's
think
not.
about in the Harlem Renaissance and when all of the black people used to come out in their finest attire, low key, they were setting the tone for us to do some of the same stuff because out of, even though it was a whole experience, they were trying to kind of have some type of enjoyment out of
Yes.
all of the things that they experienced, but they're coming out in literally stuff that they probably really couldn't afford when you got down to everything, and driving things
Possibly.
that maybe they couldn't afford. But it was still like you're still on the struggle bus, but you look good. And I
You
feel
look
like
good.
that set the tone for how we do it now. And I'm like, we look good, but we still struggling.
But we'll be eating cornbread and hot water cornbread and greens for dinner tomorrow because we spent all the money on this flapper dress. Now, I
Right.
think the value of those things was different than how we value material things now. Like, I think that mentality was more about we need to dress up because we need to make ourselves feel better and show that we are no different than everybody else at these speakeasies and these different types of clubs where they have the fancy cars and they go in there and they have drinks and dance and we can do that too. So I think part of that, at least in my opinion, is the need to show that we're no different, we're not lesser than, and we should be able to have those things ourselves. But I also think the work ethic to get those things was also different. People worked hard back then. They valued the effort they put into their jobs and the
They
money that they
did.
got. It might have been a little bit of money, but they worked really hard to get that money, and they know they should have been paid more, but they at the time they weren't going to get it. So they may have saved up to have that really nice dress, or they may have saved up to have
This
that really
is
nice food.
true. But when you fast forward, and if and that's I'm not saying that they were just doing something just to be doing it. Like I'm not making that, let me be clear, I'm not making that comparison to how everything is actually done now, but in a sense it kind of set the stage for what is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's no work ethic really behind it though. They're just doing it to showboat. And it's like, well, we've been doing this all this time. Well, we know that all of the things that happened before then and how people were working and all of those different, like we know the background, but do the younger ones really know the background? And well, it's a lot of 40 and 30 somethings that I question. I'm like, why? Why are you buying $1,000 bags and you live in a box?
You know,
Whatever. I digress.
but see, and that's the thing. Like if I want something, I'm going to work hard for it. I'm going to know that that's what I want and make the effort to get it. But for me, it's not about showing other people up. It's just because that's the thing that I want. It's important to me to have, and so I'm going to work for it. Just like my first car. I worked really hard. Could I afford that car in the beginning? No, but I worked really hard to make sure I had it. And I even said, if I have to live in it for a while, I'm willing to do it so I have my own car. Now I'm on my third. So it's the value. It's the understanding of, it's not so much the material thing itself, but the effort put into getting it, how hard you had to work for it. And I think that's the difference between our grandparents and our great grandparents having that flashy thing and in
Now.
our society now, where I'm just trying to have a flashy thing because someone down the street has that flashy thing, and her flashy thing is not going to be flashier than my thing, so I got to get a better one. It's that, and that's not important, because if you can't pay your rent, if you are now taking public transportation because you can't afford to have a car anymore, if you are eating ramen noodles every single night, not because you're saving up, but because you just don't have the money to buy groceries, that's a problem. And
Yeah.
that's that Dior, whatever, those red bottoms, whatever it is you spent money on that could have been going out to these bills or whatever, that's a problem. Now that's null and void. It should be null and void. But here again, that I feel trauma of worthlessness, of feeling worthlessness and feeling like you don't deserve to have those things, turned into now I have to have all the
Have it.
things.
Yep.
I got to make myself feel better because somebody told me I shouldn't have it. Yeah, somebody probably did. But just because someone told you you shouldn't have it doesn't mean you need to go to extremes to get it.
That's true.
And that's where we've lost ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Wow. This conversation can go on. But hold on. So we were talking about, before we got to the clothes and all of this different stuff, we were talking about the crack era, basically.
Yes. Yes.
And it actually did a number on our people. First off, who was bringing this into the community? Because Black people wasn't traveling like that. They wasn't going overseas to go find nothing. They wasn't going to Cuba, Colombia, wherever the coca plant was, to
Exactly.
go get these drugs. So they were basically planted in our communities, and people can actually look this up if they really wanna if they really wanna look. She said the cartel, partially, but you
Partially.
have, I'm not gonna say, you have systems that actually place
Yes.
these things, they plant them into the community. Think about how you have liquor stores in all Black communities, but you don't have all those liquor stores in white communities.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same premise. So
Mm-hmm.
they take this, they put it in there, and they're like, let's see what they're gonna do.
Yep.
And it took a lot of us out. That was
Mm-hmm.
like the worst thing that happened to Black people. It first it bred more drug addicts, right? So now you have all of these people that are on drugs. You have more drug dealers. So now you got people killing over drugs. You have more people being incarcerated for drug use and drug sales. It was
Yep.
like the best thing for America and the worst thing for Black people.
Yes. Definitely. Definitely. Think about it.
And
Okay.
we're still dealing with that.
We're still dealing
We're
with
still
that.
dealing with it.
Let's go back in history for a second. So let's forget about the coca plant, right? Let's talk about, oh, I don't know, opium. Where does opium come from? What do we know about opium? Yeah, it comes from poppies because, apparently if you eat 7 poppy seed bagels back to back and do a drug screen, it'll come up as you having opium in your system. So heroin, basically. But that started off as an Asian thing, an East Asian thing, because that's where the plant
and they
grew.
dealt with that. They dealt with the opioid. They had a whole crisis. Like,
They did.
it was a mess, but nobody
It
talks
was a
about
mess.
that.
And then as man traveled the world, he didn't just pick up spices and, exotic fruits. It picked up some plants too. And then started like, oh, was that what you do with that? Okay, well, snuff. Snuff was a thing. What do you think snuff was? It wasn't nicotine, So we've always had drugs in our history. Everybody has had some form of a drug. Native Americans smoked peyote, which is kind of up there with marijuana. It's kind of same
that's
effect.
like no. That's like some
Oh, that's the hallucinogen. That's right.
Yes,
yeah.
It's the whole. I'm about to say, like, you be hallucinating,
that's right.
You're gonna be off your butt. You're gonna be seeing spirit.
You're gonna be seeing spirit. But that was the purpose. That was how they would go reach back to the ancestors. They had to be on a different plane in order to get there. Same. There's a group of people, I can't remember who, but they did some form of mushrooms for the same reason, to reach back to ancestors and that.
Researching.
Oh, please do, because it's happening. See, here again, me not having a counseling degree, but I did do substance abuse prevention for a while. So I have a lot of knowledge on that too. And this is the kind of stuff I found out and I was like, ooh, wait a minute. It wasn't just us? No, it wasn't just us. Now let's fast forward to the 40s, 50s, and 60s. We had issues with Russia. And anybody who sounded even remotely close to being a Russian was a communist.
Yep.
Now, you do know that there was massive effort to make Black people communists or have a reason to incarcerate them.
What about the list?
That's right. And the wiretapping
was on the list. You had all of these actors, actresses, singers, authors. Richard Wright was on that list.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Huey P. Newton and I can't think of the other one's name. Black Panther Party. They were on the list. Anybody who went against what the government wanted, which was segregation and separatism, you were on the list. You're a communist. You're
but not only that. That's when they started bugging phones.
Yeah.
And planting people in certain places to hear conversations, and you never knew who was what, where. You never knew when you were being recorded. But if they heard a conversation that was remotely, it sounded like some type of freedom movement or whatever, you was on the list.
Because you're going against
another movie too on Netflix. I have to look at that.
Probably Netflix
that was
is
my
coming through in history.
When I tell you, throughout the pandemic, that was my go-to for a lot of history. The history of the mob is on there.
Yep.
How the mob was tied into the government is on there.
And
I'm like, people are not seeing this. It's like dead smack in your face on Netflix. Like, everybody's too busy watching entertainment. But get to the real stuff. Like,
but see, they don't. It's not that they don't see it. You can't admit that because then everything that you've been told before that is wrong, and you have to admit that you were wrong and that other people might be right. We can't have that. We can't do that. That's not okay. History
But
is wrong. What? What? Yeah.
it's that, it's that, y'all. Go look at Netflix. Look at the 13th. That's where you start. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
13th is the loophole. So once slavery was abolished,
Right.
quotation, it's still not
Big
abolished.
quotation.
They put it in the 13th Amendment that if you are an offender, a criminal, you know, you go to jail and you working on that chain gang,
Mm-hmm.
you, my friend, are a slave. You will do work for free labor. And the prison system is the biggest free market labor system there is.
So what company would want to lose its employees? Why would you let people out of jail? If you're making money off of them, if they're building your empire of whatever product you're pushing, license plates or whatever it is, because it used to be license plates back in the day, why would you let your employees go? That's labor.
Not
Why would
only
you let labor
that,
leave?
the prison system is sold on the stock market.
I'm sorry, what? I heard prison system and stock market. What?
The prison system is sold on the stock market.
Oh my goodness. That's the what? Wow.
A lot of people don't know.
Wow.
That's the $1 billion,
Wow. Okay.
baby. That's the
Wow.
gift that
See, well,
keeps on giving. So why not send all the black people to jail? Let me tell y'all something. These people that got tied up in this PPP, it's about to be a whole epidemic of black people going to jail. And it's going to give a boom to the prison system, which is going to make their pockets fatter.
hmm I can see that. Well, then
That will be the
let's go
next
back.
wave of mass incarceration, which will be under
Yes.
Biden. I actually am predicting that's going to happen next year.
Well, okay. So then we have a mass incarceration. Then we're back to square one with the welfare because folks who are at home, you're in most cases breadwinner is now gone. So now you've got to work. Now you don't have the ability to be home with your kids. So your kids are just doing what?
But if you go to jail, who's going to be with your kids?
Who's going to be with your kids? The
Nobody thought
system
about
is
this.
crooked. System is crooked, y'all. Completely crooked.
And they knew when they set these loans up, they knew that black people was gonna jump on this and come up with all types of things to be like, oh, I qualify, and they were gonna do whatever they needed to do to get the money. And now all of the alphabets want to come after people. That's all I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
All these people are going to jail, and they're not gonna go to federal prison. No, they're gonna put you in there with killers and dealers. So now, if they were
Look,
white, they might send them to federal prison, for wire fraud or for, I don't know, some type of white collar crime. I
embezzlement.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, black people are not gonna get that,
No. We get orange is the new black. That's the kind of jail we get.
and that's what's gonna happen because they let people out. They actually let people out due to the pandemic. So think about it. The pandemic, they wind up losing money because people died in
Yeah.
jail,
Yeah.
and then they let some people out because of COVID. Now they
Mm-hmm.
have to pack the jails again because they need the money. They done gave y'all all this money. Now they need it back. How they gonna get it? They have to incarcerate all these people, and it's gonna be thousands of people, like
Mm-hmm.
probably hundreds of thousands of people, and it's gonna be ugly. 2022 might be a little ugly. That's all I'm gonna say.
This whole 10-year period is starting to seem like it's all of it's going to be ugly because we started off ugly. We're continuing ugly. Next year is predicted to be ugly. Like, it's just a 10-year ugly gap. Like, maybe 2030. We'll try again.
Oh my goodness. So all of these things are consistent oppression and
Yeah.
consistent traumatization, because
Yes.
now you have people that were impoverished that got a little happy because
Mm-hmm.
now they say the government was giving out free money, which we know it wasn't free. Anything
Yep.
tied to the government, it's never free. They want their money on the back end or some type of way. They want their money.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's the first rule. If you've never
I
taken
feel
an
like it's an
economics
abusive
class,
baby daddy.
man, right? If you've never taken an economics class, let me just help you out. The very first rule of microeconomics is there's no such thing as a free lunch, which means everything comes at a cost. Every
Mhm.
single thing comes at a cost, either money, time, or what you could have been doing instead of doing this. So you're going to pay one way or another.
That's very
Always.
true. That's
Always.
very true. But people don't look at it like that, especially
No.
our people. Our people, for some reason, in certain situations, we want to glance over and glaze over and create our own scenarios as to what is really happening to make us happy, temporary gratification. And then I heard some people was getting their bodies done with this money. I know that I'm getting sidetracked, but people went and got their bodies done. And I was like, why not clear your credit up? Why not actually start the business you told them that you was starting, or you started, or whatever you did?
Oh,
Why
wait,
not
wait,
hire
wait.
people?
Wait, let me go one better. The thing that we don't know to do as a people, why not invest?
But they
Invest.
still gonna go to jail.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
And
But
then you
a
done
lot
brought
of
in
the
other
things,
people, and now they all jacked up. Just
well, you got to have friends.
but some friends probably don't even know. They don't even know. What if they? What if you never told them this is what you did? Like, it's almost like you start a business and you're like, I'm gonna buy up all of these properties. I'm gonna flip them, and all of this different stuff. Like, so you all create some type of investment group and you do all of this stuff. Your partner comes in, they do it, and then your partner is one of the people that got that PPP loan, and they never had the business, and they invested that money. Now all your stuff is frozen because they done jacked you up.
Oh, yeah, that's bad juju right there. You don't see. You don't want to be caught up in that. You don't want none of that.
There's a lot of
You don't
people
want no
caught up
smoke.
in it. It's a lot. And when I heard people was getting their bodies done, I was like, so you got $20,000 to $30,000 and you spent it on your body, but your body's gonna be sitting in prison. So you're gonna be looking like a bad bee on the bench in your cell.
Somebody else will enjoy that.
Somebody gonna be rubbing on that booty.
What is the TikTok? I'm trying to get you next to me, but girl, you gotta let me see that booty work. I mean, that's you can use your body to do that in prison. That's about all the work you're gonna get.
I'm
So
like, y'all jack this up. Like, if y'all was gonna finesse the system, then you should have finessed it and got out of debt. That's how you finesse.
that's how you
That's your
finesse.
real finesse.
You tell the government, I don't need you anymore. I'm good.
The
I'm
real
good.
flex is to get completely out of debt and then be
Mhm.
like, what are you talking about?
You must be looking for somebody else, not
Like,
me.
right. I didn't buy anything. So what are you saying? Well, the only way you're gonna get the money is if you call the creditors. They gonna be like, what? You going to jail? But
And this,
you have
and
completely wiped out your debt. So then when you how do they even do that? Like, I ain't never seen nothing like that before, but how would they even do that? I
I
know,
don't
girl.
know.
Let's
I
go
don't
back.
know. But this is what I'm saying. We don't. we don't do the right things in the right way. And as much as I can sit here and tell you that the environment around us has caused so much of our trauma, we are doing self-inflicted trauma right now. I can say 300 years ago, that trauma was brought to our doorstep. Now it's self-inflicted. It's a bit self-inflicted, you
It
know.
is. Oh my goodness. So I was watching, what's this guy's name? Mr. Lego earlier, on YouTube. He talks
Okay.
about, he deals with trauma. He doesn't have a degree in it, but he does a lot of almost coaching, like,
Okay.
but he digs deep into people's trauma. Like, they'll call with an issue, and he's like, "No, it's deeper than that." Like, and it's funny because I've always said that people BS therapists,
Yeah.
but you can't BS certain people. When you're
Yep.
talking about life coaches, usually life coaches dig deeper than those therapists. Therapists, I feel like and he said it too, like there's a limit that it's like they can't go past a certain point when they're
Yes.
dealing with clients. But like a life coach can actually hit, you know, certain points, and they can actually do the deep digging. And it's like he was doing that, and one of the girls wound up breaking down. And so he was talking about how people are basically, well, women are doing self-inflicting trauma
Mm-hmm.
because they are dating people based on types and not
Yep.
because they're good for them. Which I did talk about that in one of these lives, probably the first or the second one, but I did talk about that. So that's another form of trauma.
Mm-hmm. It's a huge form of trauma. So, oh man. Okay, so going back to, being told we don't need our black male counterpart, then you have this mentality, okay, well, I don't need anybody. I got this myself.
You
Doing
really
so,
didn't. If you on the welfare system, you ain't got nothing yourself. Not
you know,
back then was food stamps, so you ain't had no money to get food. You got food stamps, and all of this was depending on how many kids you had. Don't get me started.
which means you have to be with a lot of people to get a lot of kids to get more money. I mean, that's a vicious cycle. So that's self-inflicted trauma right there. So let's say one of those kids breaks the cycle and says, you know what? I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get really good grades. I'm going to, do something different than what my mom did. Okay, cool. But you didn't have a father in the house. So your relationship with men is still kind of skewed because you don't really know exactly how to deal with men because the
Yeah.
men that you saw were your mom's friends in and out of the house. So you don't really know. Okay. So now you're out here dating, and yes, you may be self-sufficient and you're holding down a good job and you're an educated person, but you don't have any experience with men. So you are thinking, well, I've built myself up so then my counterpart should be just as built up as I am. So you overlook these nice men who are holding down decent jobs and are just looking to have a wife and a family and live their best lives because you want like this ideal. This ideal who may look really good on paper, may present very well, but could be, a wife beater, or could be, addicted to something, could be
Mhm.
into kiddie porn. I mean, we've seen that happen before. So rather than, like you said, finding somebody that's good for them, they're looking for somebody that looks good with them,
With
which
them.
is
Yep.
totally different. Totally different.
Ooh. Yeah. So I used to have, and it's the other part. He was talking about having a type. So for a minute, I had a type, right?
Yeah, we do that.
It wasn't a good type at that time. I was dating hood guys.
Bad boys.
Yeah, yeah. And I learned a lot of stuff. That's all I'm gonna say. Like I learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. Because that's a lot
But
right there.
the one thing, and I think, my friend keeps telling me to write a book. And I'm like, if I write this book, I'm gonna have to figure out how to alter some stuff because I can't name names and nothing can come back to nothing because if it does, it's not gonna be a good look. So I
Yeah.
dated one individual who was he's no longer here. He got killed and he did a whole lot of stuff. And and so he told me this stuff before he died, and I was like, okay,
Wow.
all right. I was crazy then because I ain't even care. I wasn't even scared. I was like, okay, all right, whatever. Stop telling me stuff. Because I don't want to know. I don't want to know no more. Let it go. But for me, though, I realized that there was a thing that I needed. So when my dad passed, there was a need to feel protected because the protection was gone. And that is
Right.
what they provided a a false sense of protection because technically they're not protecting you. If they're in that lifestyle, they're not protecting you. They are putting you at risk every single day because you don't know who's gonna pop up at the door, who's gonna kick down the door, or somebody gonna shoot up the house. Like you don't know what's going on. So if I would tell a girl anything, don't do it. That's not a good look. It's not gonna get you nothing. I mean, they have money, but at the end of the day, if they go to jail and all of their money is gone,
Then what?
you could have dated a regular Joe Schmo
And that
for
money,
that.
and here again, that money comes at a risk. You know, it comes at the cost of potentially your life, the
It
lives of the people
does.
around you. You know,
But you know what the crazy part is? When I would tell him, like, you realize that what you're doing, you could start a business.
hmm
Because in all actuality, you have the know-how and have enough manpower to actually have a business. He would tell me, "You stay in your book. This is my life. I'm with the streets,
because
and
it's
I've been doing this
easier.
since I was a kid. I make more money
Right,
on the streets than I do
right.
working at McDonald's." And he
Yes.
was like, "Eventually, I'll have a business, but right now, this is where the money at." And I was like,
Can I tell you how many students I've worked with, black males, who have told me that? No, 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 Aisha, look, I hear you, but I ain't feeling that right now because, the streets got my money right now. Like, I'm trying to help out my moms, and I'm trying to get my own place. I'm trying to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. But, I hear you, and maybe later, like I'll hit that work thing, but right now, like the money's out there and I'm getting it. I'm hustling. I'm hustling. Right. You're putting all of what you could be doing now until the future and may not even make it to that point. Because I have also the same kids that told me this, or the same funerals I ended up going to because circumstances brought them there. So
"Yep,
to say that, like, it's the same narrative, and it's easier to trick yourself into believing that narrative is true than to try something different, something scary, something that actually takes work. Because hustling in that way doesn't take work. Hustling to start a legitimate business, that takes
takes
work.
a lot
That
of
takes
work."
effort. And it might even take some failure. And you take those L's and you turn them into wins later on because now you know what you shouldn't do. But when you're just hustling on the street, it's easy money. And that's what it's about. It's easy. I can get this right here, right now, no effort. Except that I might go to jail, except that I might get shot, except that I might get jumped and everything might get stolen, except that my family might get, you know, killed, kidnapped, whatever, except that my girl might get raped or passed around. And then I might have kids by several women, might not be able to take care of them because I can't be around the. I mean, but that's neither here nor there. That's not important. I'm getting my money right now.
Yeah. And that's exactly like in my mind, I thought that I would be helping him, but I realized after a while that I couldn't do that because, and that's actually why I wanted to go into criminal law, but I wanted to do a reform. In my mind, I wanted to reform the system. I wanted to rehabilitate criminals to make them transfer the skills that they learned in prison to real life situations. And
And
so
that'd be
when I was
good.
talking to this guy about it, he was like, you know, they're going to come after you, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? So then he started explaining like how deep the prison system is tied up in, you know, the American dollar. And I was like, oh, I guess
Wait,
not.
don't get put on that list. You'll be on that list next.
The communist list.
The
Shoot,
communist
they might
list.
still have me. Low key.
You
Low
never
key.
know.
I'm like, they do stuff that you could not even fathom. People done been set up and they make it look like, oh, they committed suicide. Oh, you know, it was an accident. You know, they died in a car accident.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
And
enough. I need it
there's
right
no
now.
proof, there's no evidence. It just happened. Case
Ain't nobody
closed.
seen nothing.
Well,
Right.
nobody's gonna touch anything. Nobody's gonna look. Forget about nobody saw anything, nobody heard anything. Nobody's gonna make the effort to look because everybody's hush hush, and hush hush could mean everybody was paid to be hush hush. You say you
Yeah.
saw nothing, you say nothing. Here's your wad.
And that's the other part because too, I'm gonna say this. Looking at his cycle, there was a lot of trauma. Like he lost his mom when he was young. His dad raised him. His dad was on the streets. His dad showed him the life. So as a kid, this is what he was doing. Well, he was taking care of his grandmother, his dad's mother, um, and you know, paying all her bills or whatever. Meanwhile, while he's doing all of this and selling drugs, his dad is hooked on the drugs.
Yeah.
So guess who's beating their dad up for stealing?
Oh wow.
Mm.
And that in and of itself is hard because
It wasn't hard to him. Like
well, no,
it
no,
was like it was like, and I was looking at him like, how could you? He told me
because
at
it's
the end of the
business.
day,
It's
that
business.
nigga off the street,
Yep, because you messing with my business. That's what that's about.
and I was
Right.
like, I done learned me something. Niggas is not your friends. You can't trust that nigga.
But that tells
Like,
you how
ooh.
serious the trauma can be if somebody is willing to beat up their own parent over messing with their business. That's deep. And yes, I get his father was on the street too and basically showed him the ropes, it sounds like, but then to sit here and be like, he's just like everybody else out here. No love. I got no love for him. Really? That's the dude who
But
raised
that's
you.
the thing. That's the that now that was the other thing I learned. So street niggas, drug dealers, hood niggas, those types of guys. I'm not gonna say you have people that's from the hood but not of the hood. So I won't necessarily say that those are hood niggas, but some people will
Right.
classify them as hood niggas. But I'm just gonna say those that rip and run the streets and do street business,
Okay.
their mindset, number one, is different. So for a woman, if he has to do business in the streets and cannot show any emotion, anything, and he's grimy in the streets, guess where else he gonna be grimy at?
No, thank
There's
you.
no on and off switch.
No,
There
thank
is
you.
no on and off switch. There is no real compassion. There is no real love. Because at the end of the day, if both of y'all get turned in, the feds at your door or Chicago police at your door, wherever you live, guess who's gonna be looking like she probably gonna flip on me? So I gotta save myself. He ain't gonna save you. You're gonna be in a whole world of trouble by yourself. Even if you don't know nothing.
That's not going to stop you from being put through the ringer by whoever's trying to find out information.
Nope, because they figure you with them, so you know.
You
So
must know
that's a whole
something.
nother level
Trauma.
of
Trauma.
trauma.
Yep.
And then this woman, what if she has kids with him? And he's gone or she's gone. Now you got grandma, auntie, uncle raising these kids. Now they grow up without parents.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got foster care, which are these internal systems that have been created to it's another level of oppression to say that you can't even take care of your own kids. So let us step in, let us have child protective services and foster care and all of these social workers and all of these different systems to tell you how you should take care of and govern your kids, because Black people are just such animals that they don't know how to take care of their kids, although we're the ones that nurtured white babies.
Say it again for the people on the back. If anybody knows anything
We're the
about
ones that
nurturing
breastfed
kids.
their babies,
Yes.
nurtured their babies while they
Yes.
did, what did they do? We're the ones that taught them how to wash their butt.
They had pinochle parties and played bridge.
So way back when, they didn't know how to wash up. Let's just talk facts. And you can Google this. It'll pop up somewhere. But a lot of them did not know how to wash up. So we were the ones that taught them. Look up the Moors.
The Moors. Mm-hmm.
The Moors taught white people how to do a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And Moors don't get credit for anything. Because why?
Except
They Negroes.
Except being the reason for the, what was it called? The Crusades. They were the reason for the Crusades because the Holy Roman Empire had to eradicate them because they believed in a different God.
Mm-hmm.
So they were the whole reason why, that happened. That's the only thing that they're credited for. And you are right. Years, decades, centuries of us taking care of other people's children, especially in a time where our own children were being bought and sold. Couldn't have our own kids, but we're in the big house taking care of other people's kids. Master's kids. And they are, oh, my mammy, and my mammy takes care of me until they grow up and realize, oh, mammy's not your friend. Mammy's just, own property. She's property. So now
and you
you
want
go
to
out
know
there.
a great depiction of that is Lady Sings the Blues.
Yes.
Her mother, I think everybody should know what Lady Sings the Blues is, Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
Her mother was a mammy.
Yep.
And her mother worked in the house while Billie was with cousins and aunts or whoever she lived with.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to visit her mom, but she could not live with her mom. And she was like, why I can't come live with you? And she's like, because, this is my job. And it's like real weird and twisted. Because it's like you're in a house taking care of somebody else's kids while your own kids are neglected.
Yep. Look at the movie The Help. That, I mean, but it does depict what was happening simply because you had a lot of us in uniform getting on buses, getting on the front of the bus, putting in the money, getting off the bus, walking to the back
And
of the
going
bus,
to the back.
and going to the back to go to our employer's house, wash their clothes, clean their house, take care of their children, and use an outhouse for the bathroom because, God forbid, we use the bathroom in the house. So there's that. But that's my whole point. Like, that's just everything that we're saying, everything that we talked about, the system, how the systems are set up, how we have had to, and going back to what you said about that boyfriend, he was in survival mode. And that's the other part about trauma. When you are traumatized consistently, you are in a constant state of survival. It's almost like, think about an animal who's been living on the streets for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It has to learn to survive
Yep.
the best way it possibly can. So it might eat things that it typically wouldn't eat. It might live in conditions that it normally wouldn't live in. It might attack people that try to help it because it's just scared and worried that this is a bigger creature coming at me. I don't know what it's going to do, so I have to show my teeth and growl. You know, that's survival mode. And you do it until you don't have to do it anymore. However, if you are consistently traumatized, you don't have a choice but to be in that mode. And just like you said, that boyfriend had to be emotionless and couldn't turn it off and on, that survival mode is hard to turn off. And as a person in that mode, you lose trust. You have very little ability to trust anybody because that trauma has taught you you only have yourself. So even
Yep.
when a good person is there trying to help you, you don't trust them, and you may even push them away because you think they want something more of you than just trying to help
You know what? I didn't build like I don't have any crazy stories about him doing anything to me because I would go off on him. I was probably the only one. People was actually scared of him, and I'd be like, "Nigga, I ain't scared of you. What? You gonna do what?
you. Yeah.
Be quiet and go sit down."
But you know what? He might have respected that because even having that level of survival mode and ruling with an iron fist and putting fear in people, sometimes that same person needs an equal, someone who's going to stand up to them, someone who's not going to back down. Because think about it this way: if my business is controlling people and having them do everything for me, when I come home, that's not to say that I want to be controlled, but I would like somebody that I can feel like I can trust is going to tell me how it really is and not just be a yes man. So sometimes it does work out that way.
Well, yeah, that was. You know what? My mama thought I was crazy then. She was like, "That is not your life. That is not your life."
Yeah,
I will talk
but
about that on another live because that was
that's a whole other thing. Yeah. But let me just point this one thing out. I'm gonna ask you a question. How much trauma had you experienced personally before meeting him? And that can be a rhetorical question. I'm just
so.
saying,
At that point in my life, though, I did not care about anything, so I wasn't
right,
scared. Nothing
right.
scared me. Like I was at a point where if a police officer would say something to me, I would go toe to toe with them because I didn't care. I was scared. I wasn't scared of nothing. Like when I go back and think in my mind, I'm like, what the hell was wrong with me?
Because anything could have happened.
But I had been through a lot of stuff, like,
Yeah.
and I was like, it was almost like I just kept stuffing it, just stuffing it, just stuffing it, and not dealing with it. So with him though, I wasn't supposed to be dating him. I was supposed to be helping him. Like I thought in my mind, I'm gonna help him. We were friends. I'm gonna help him. Yeah, that is not what happened.
No, no. But you know what?
That was a mess. But it taught me some lessons. I would never say that. I feel like there's a lesson in everything. And I've gotten lessons out of dating relationships. I've gotten lessons out of life. So even if I've gone through something, I'm like, okay, that was a lesson. Now I'm at everything was a lesson. And what did I get out of those lessons? Good or bad, what was it? So I'm of a different mindset now. But then, girl, I didn't care. I didn't care. I had gone through stuff. I was like, I don't care about nothing. So
Exactly.
I was essentially crazy.
Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about that for a second. A lot of us, especially a lot of us as Black people, and I'll say especially Black women, are seen as being crazy. We are loud. We are, boisterous. We are in your face and, shaking the head and, wagging the finger type of thing. That's how we're typically seen, or being unruly. Now let's talk about not caring. Trauma on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of generational trauma. You don't care anymore.
Yep,
It's
that's very true.
it's like really no F's given at that point, because it's like I can't afford to care. I can't. I don't have it in me. I'm dealing with too many things. I got the weight of my trauma, my mom's trauma, my grandmother's trauma, her mom's trauma, her mom's trauma, her mom's trauma, societal trauma, telling me who I should and shouldn't be. Me trying to fight all of that. I'm tired. I'm
Yep.
exhausted. And now I'm just going to snap. So when you come and say something to me, I'm going to snap. That's it. So I don't really think our typical personality is to be difficult, but I think
hmm
in some cases, this has something to do with it.
It does. I would agree. But I think that, and even looking, so I'm gonna say this. I was having a conversation with my mom about Big Mom, because she done stabbed a man, and
wow, she,
yo, crazy. But it was a level of disrespect that had happened, and that was her response. And in my mind, I'm like, why do we have to go through stuff that makes us respond this way? Like,
we have, yeah,
why are we going through this? And then be like, okay, well, I got to deal with it. And then I got to check this person, and I'm like, why do we do that as Black women? I mean, it's taught to us, of course, because if I'm saying Big Mama, that's our great grandmother, right? So I'm saying that's generational, because even the women in our family are pop off queens, right? So it's
yeah,
like that is something that has been ingrained in us to do. And it's like, you can't say nothing, you can't do nothing. It's like, it's pure craziness, in all honesty, the fact that you have to respond like that. But that is a part of continuous trauma in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Whereas white women have not gone through those similar situations or been put in those types of environments or whatever. So they can be soft, they can be sweet, they can be nurturing. Whereas we always got to fight.
we always have to fight, pick a fight, argue back. Can't just walk away. Can't just be like, you know what? I don't want to say anything that's going to hurt your feelings, so I'm going to go over here. When I calm down, we can have a conversation. We don't do that. We don't do that. That's not, it's almost like it's not our nature to do that. We're reactive. We're always reactive because we always have to be. There's always something. We always have to like act now and think about it later, if we think about it at all. Sometimes it's just like, I don't even care. Like you were saying
Yeah.
earlier, I don't care, you know? And I actually I had a few Black men tell me this. That is one of the reasons why they are with white women. And I love who you want to love. I don't have any problems with that. But for that to be your reason, really, They have told me to my face, the reason why I date white women is because they don't pop off like black women always do. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Really? That's your reason? Not because they have, who you're with has a beautiful personality or a great spirit, or you see the mother of your children in her. It's because black women pop off too much? Really? Okay. Trauma. More trauma for us. Yay. you
But you
know,
know what? I'm a person that says love who you love, right?
please
And then
do.
people
Please do.
people will be like, oh, black people should be with black people. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at how there were different tribes and how, all of these different people came about, we're all mixed up anyway. So it's like,
Pretty much.
what are you even talking about? Like nobody's pure anything. If I was pure anything, I would not be this complexion. You would not be
Yeah.
your complexion. Like we would
We,
be we would be mighty dark there. So
some of our folks came from the equator, so just saying.
somebody was mixing with somebody to do something. Yeah.
Look, I literally took a DNA test. There's like about 4% of some Irish Scottish thing happening right here. So there's that.
There's
Just
the slave master's blood. Don't get me started on that. How they rape is a rape is a long standing thing that's been happening. And that is one of the longest and deepest rooted trauma that black women have experienced since slavery because they was getting raped by massa.
and then being raped by our own people because two things happened. When you don't have a father in the house to protect you, and mom has several boyfriends coming through, and you just happen to be a 13-year-old girl who's shapelier or more developed than other 13-year-old girls, he's looking at you too like you're a piece of meat. Then let's talk about and then you know what? Every time we talk, every time I get out here with you, something that you say always triggers the R. Kelly complex. I'm gonna have to talk about it now. I have to, because that has bothered me since I
You know
saw it.
what?
Then I have to. I'm sorry. I got to go there for a hot second.
Here
I just
we
do,
go.
because
Here we go.
what you know what? Take as many sips as you need to, and hold on tight, because this is my issue. I understand wanting to be famous. I understand having a talent and wanting to show the world and just needing a boost. That's how everybody in the industry has been. You just need a boost. Just need a little bit something to help you get to your dreams. What has bothered me about the R. Kelly situation is these were young girls, and they got younger and younger and younger. And instead of our people rallying around these girls and saying, hold up, Kelly, hold up, look here. Uh, if you're trying to help their career, okay, but why they got to be in your basement? Why do they got to be down there with a bedroom? Like why do they have to like live on the compound with you? Like what? And without their parents? Hold on. Nobody did that. However, what did happen was, oh, y'all just trying to put a good black man down. But these are young.
I'm gonna say something, and you're gonna be mad.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
There are plenty of white men that
Yes.
have been with 13, 14,
Yes.
15,
Yes.
16, 17 year
Yes.
olds.
Yes.
You have Elvis Presley, you have Frank Sinatra, you
Yes.
have Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner was the king of
Yeah.
getting consent for all of his madness, and nobody's talking about it. That's all I'm gonna say. He still got his whole empire intact, and he's gone. Okay, and nobody disgraced, defamed, nothing. I'm gonna say this because with the R. Kelly situation, so you have parents. These parents are actually involved in this. This is
Mhm.
he's not alone in his perversion, because I'm gonna say
Because it was way too
in
easy
order
for
to
him to do.
like a minor,
Yeah.
there's some level of perversion there, but that's not uncommon because I was just talking to my friend about that and how at 16, this 26-year-old guy was trying to talk to me.
Yep.
He knew I was in high school. He knew I was in high school. He did not care. So, not uncommon.
No, it's not
Very
uncommon.
dependent.
But that's
It's
what
going
I'm saying.
on. Even if we want to be honest, our grandmother was 16, and that's all I'm gonna
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to go there because that's a whole nother, that's that. There's a whole nother, so that we can't touch that tonight. Mhm.
But it wasn't called, okay, so back then there was not a perversion thing. Why? Because during slavery and during a certain point in time, once girls got their periods, they were considered women and they got married. So let's start there. So they were getting married at 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, and having babies. So this new concept of quote unquote teen pregnancy is not new. They just had to put black faces to it, and they now it was an epidemic. But it wasn't an epidemic. It was happening already, okay? And people was forcing these girls to get married. So it didn't look so all over the place because a lot of them was having sex and they were not married. They was
Right.
covering their tracks by making them get married. So you had
Right.
a thing called shotgun wedding.
Hmm.
And that was to cover up the mess. But they were all kids. These parents were consenting to allowing their kids to do this. So this is not a new thing when you look at the history of it all. The
Nope.
only difference with him, though, I feel like one, he had his own trauma.
Yes.
So you have your own trauma, and then you do some of the same things that have been done to you to somebody else and to other people. But not only that, you had parents that were on board with this. That was just basically like, well, sign them up. Here you go.
Hmm.
And it's like, what am I gonna get out the deal? Okay, I'm gonna get some money. If you all look up Joycelyn Savage, he was paying these people's mortgages, paying for cars, houses. But the girl, she wasn't like 14. She was like, what, 16 or something?
She was
She was a
older.
little older.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she was still a teenager. But her parents was on board. Like they made it seem like, oh, he got her, he kidnapped her. Yo, if you do your research, these parents was getting money for this. Like they was, and them people filed bankruptcy 6 times, 6 freaking times,
They
and
were
then
getting
came
money,
back for more money.
but did they know that was going to be a part of it? Did
Yes,
they
because
know?
he was a musician for him.
Oh, so he knew what the dirt was. So never mind. Okay. Well, you know what?
Actually,
In
a
history,
couple of them were musicians for him.
oh, that's just worse. That just makes it so much worse. But you know what? Throughout history, people have sold their own kids. That was another
Yeah.
form of slavery.
But I have another issue with him though, because I'm gonna say this. We used to go to R. Kelly's parties. My dad actually knew him when I was little. He's the one that told me about him, about it. And then I was like, who is that? He was like, Robert. He was at the studio. And I'm like, I don't know no Robert. And then R. Kelly come out as R. Kelly. And I was like,
Oh, okay.
he was like, that was the guy I was telling you about. I was like, no, that's R. Kelly. He was like, Robert. I was like, whatever. But as I got older, my dad's no longer here. He had parties at his house in Olympia Field. So me and my friend would go there. Mind
Um,
you, we were in our 20s, like we were like early 20s.
mhm.
But you had to sign like all of this. This one was like you had to sign papers to be
NDA
here.
probably.
Like, yes. And he took a copy of your doggone ID, whether it was a license, whatever picture ID you had. You cannot record anything. You cannot do any of that. Like no pictures, no nothing. to be in this man's house. And mind you, we was in one part of the house doing this, and then we go into the actual house. Like it was like a section that was kind of like almost like a office type of situation, kind of like far off, and then you walk around and go to the house. In this house is like stupid big. When I say stupid, I mean stupid big. And so, but you can see what's going on. So the other thing is, his wife, I don't believe nothing she's saying. I don't believe that she didn't know nothing. I believe that she was all in it, because you cannot not hear anything. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. You can see everything from a certain point. It's open enough for you to see. And when you walk in, there was like this big old fountain / waterfall situation. And then he got all of these rooms. I had never seen nothing like it. Rooms for like different entertainment purposes. And then he had his piano in one room, and he would play and sing and entertain, and girl, it was like a whole big party, and he was doing this for a while. But I don't believe her story. I believe she was hard up for money is the reason why she did what she did, because prior to her coming out and saying all of this stuff, she was on Instagram, and I wish I had recorded it. She was on Instagram singing his songs and talking about, yeah, this is my baby daddy, but we still family. And I was like, really? Really, nigga?
Yeah.
Now you wanna? I'm traumatized. I went through so much, and you probably did, but now I don't believe you. I don't believe your story, because just a minute ago you was singing his praises next to your man, and now all of a sudden it's a whole expose on this man. What the heck are you doing? That was a mess.
It was a mess.
And she wouldn't drop his last name, so obviously it helps you out. That's all I'm saying.
Me, I would want nothing to do, nothing at all. I would want everything removed, so I have no trace of ever having been in that situation.
If you were so traumatized, you would drop the last name, because the last name in itself is traumatizing.
Yeah.
But she has wrote books, she has made guest appearances, and is known because of that last name.
Yeah.
Not only that, you was mad because he wasn't giving you child support. Whatever. She did a whole story talking about, he couldn't even pay me child support. He wasn't giving me all the money. You was just singing his praises. So which one is it? You need the money, or I'm confused. Whatever.
I'm confused. But see, that's the thing. So for the chicks who really get taken advantage of, you just made their whole situation look suspect, even though they really are being taken advantage of. Because
and in all actuality, they were. I mean, despite who it was, just if you look at it for what it is, at the end of the day, they were kids. Even though their parents put them in this situation, and to me, their parents gonna have to answer for it sometime down the line. It's gonna come back. But at the end of the day, they were kids. They might have been fast tail kids, but they was kids. Somebody should have been an adult in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Yes. And put a stop to it and said, this isn't okay. This, no, none of this.
Nobody did that. Even the people that was around him didn't do that. So at the end of the day, everybody is responsible.
The people around him all admitted they knew, but they didn't say anything because of whatever goofy reason, right? So he got to do what he wanted.
Into it too. I honestly believe
or he paid them really well.
I think they was doing stuff too. I think, sometimes, when you hang out with friends, y'all all doing the same thing. So
Or you just turning a blind eye and enjoying the environment because you're the person that's in the corner, having a drink or smoking the smoke, and you're like, it's not me, so oh well. You know, the bottom line for it is, like you said, is they were all kids, and they were taken advantage of either by him, by their parents, by the industry, whatever. Nobody came to their defense. Nobody rescued them. And now they have the trauma of this experience with them that they have to carry for the rest of their lives. Which then leads me to a whole nother situation of the medical situation. We are disproportionately, and you can look at statistics, we are disproportionately treated for a lot of medical situations. And my phone is about to die. Let me plug it up real quick.
Wait, what
Um,
I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end this live and I'm gonna come back because I don't want them to cut us off. Because I want this to be. Wait a minute. Where'd she go? I want it. Okay, so I want to highlight this one.
okay.
So I'm gonna end it and then I'm gonna come right back.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll be right back. All
All right.
right.